I'm Nate. I'm with State Natural Areas. I'll be leading the burn today.
Jessica. Bridget.
Kevin.
I'm Adam. I'll be on the east line leading it.
Ben.
Alex.
Jared.
Gary.
Paul.
Okay. So, Ben, how many burns have you been on?
2.
2 burns. Gary, approximately how many burns have you been on
5 or 6.
in your lifetime?
Oh, a lifetime? Hundreds.
Hundreds of burns. Paul, you've been on a handful of burns?
Yeah.
Okay. The rest of the people here are on our crew, and Kev used to be on our crew. It's now the assistant botanist. So let me go through weather. So I just read off current weather. In general today, we're going to have, oh, that's weather from the other. Read off the weather from Baraboo for 3 days ago. That's not good. Okay. So today we got a high of 71 degrees, which we've almost already gotten to, so it might even be warmer than they thought. Winds are supposed to be west right now at about 8, and we're pretty sheltered, so no surprise we're not really feeling them here. They're supposed to sort of decrease slightly throughout the day, and at about 2 p.m. they're supposed to switch and eventually go out of the south. So west right now, switching out of the south later. Overnight they're going to stay out of the south, even to the southeast, and then they're out of the south all tomorrow. Humidities today are supposed to be dropping rapidly right now, getting down to the mid-30s. We're supposed to bottom out around 35. We're supposed to have sort of increasing cloud cover throughout the day. By like nightfall, we're supposed to be at about 50% cloud cover. There's no chance of rain until tomorrow. Tomorrow the rain chance is really low throughout the day, and if it does rain, they have really light amounts forecasted. But then tomorrow night, we have a likely chance of rain, and we're supposed to get over a ½ inch of rain from Sunday night into Monday.
Good.
So, should be wet. Chance of thunderstorms throughout that whole time as well. For smoke today, we have really light winds, virtually no winds on this side of the unit. We'll probably feel them on the other side. But we have excellent mixing heights. These are probably the best mixing heights we've had all season. They're already supposed to be at 5,900 feet and get up above 8,000 feet in the afternoon. So we have a pretty high Haynes index, 4 going to 5. Transport winds are in the teens. But I would guess, especially if we're not feeling much wind, our smoke is going to be going largely straight up in the air. So out on the roads, that should really help us out. Any questions about the weather? All right, I'll talk a little bit about this burn unit. So everybody has a bunch of maps, and we have one big map here, and if you need markers, if you want to write something, we got markers. So we call this unit Whitewater Oak Opening. It's technically a unit of the Cliff Messenger State Natural Area. The Cliff Messenger State Natural Area is a bunch of scattered prairie remnants and savanna remnants all over the Kettle Moraine. I think there's maybe like 15 units. And originally it was essentially these prairies that are in the middle of the unit that were part of the Cliff Messenger State Natural Area. And then we've been managing this as a larger block for savanna and oak woodland. So now this is essentially, it's a 200-acre burn unit, and so we have about a 200-acre state natural area here that's being managed for oak savanna with a little bit of dry prairie and a little bit of oak woodland. This unit's been burned several times in different configurations. This last configuration, like this entire unit, I think has probably been burned 2 or 3 times. And last was in 2011, and apparently that was somewhat of a marginal burn. So it hasn't had a good burn in, quite a few years now. But we have burned this entire unit probably 3 times or so. So fuels in the unit, it's almost all oak dominated. We do have this one bottom field. This is like in the bottom of a valley, and it's way in the interior, and this is like cool season grass. It's like old field, Canada goldenrod. And then we have the prairies, which are very small, and they're on a south-facing ridge. There's a couple other little pockets of prairie, but they're interior. So basically all the fire behavior we're going to be dealing with is going to be from oak leaf litter or worse. Some parts of the unit, especially down in like this far southwest corner and this far east end. Fuels are pretty marginal. We don't have much oak in those areas. Some of these areas are like solid box elders, so when you hit those areas, we're not going to see any fire at all.
Okay.
I'll tell people where they're going to be, so as I talk about this, you know which line you're on. So I'll lead the burn, and I'll probably spend most of my day hanging out at D, and probably generally on the north line. These letters that are on these maps and are on some of the maps that you have are marked on the ground on trees. We have trees flagged and written. So when you're out there, like at B, you should be able to see a B. So that should help people know where they're at. So we're going to have 2 lines. We're going to have east line that's led by Adam. The east line is going to be Adam with Alex, Gary, and Ben. And then we're going to have a west line that's going to be led by Jess. And that's going to include Paul Mosina, Kevin, and Bridget, and also Jared. Jared and I, so Jared will technically be part of Jess's line, but he'll kind of be bouncing around. He'll start out with me at D. We got 2 houses here that's both owned by the Hare family. Jared will be hanging out with me while we burn out these houses, and then people will move away. Jared and I will kind of hang out, watch the houses, and mop up and stuff like that. Once we're done there, there's another house that's on some of your maps, but not on this one. It's within the unit. Probably about like here. Yeah. That's Steve Johnson's house. In the past when we've done this, he didn't have a house there, so we burned right through his property with his permission. Now he built a house in there, and it's got a driveway leading to it, and then it's got green grass all the way around the house and everything like that, so it's really solid. So we again have Steve's permission to burn his property, but his house is essentially in the middle of the burn unit. Essentially, maybe we have a break around it. So when we get ready to burn around Steve's house, Jared will leave here. I'll stay with these houses. Jared will leave and come over here, and Jared's job will be to help Jess's line get around Steve's house and then stay there and basically make sure we have somebody watching it while everything burns out, and then Jared will also probably mop up around Steve's house. Steve's home today. Steve's super friendly. He's super supportive, wants us to burn his property. The other people we have permission from are the Heinz family, Dave and Carrie. Their property is between H and G, and essentially what we wanted was permission to burn across the property line onto their green grass. So we have their permission to basically burn through the fence line out to their green lawn. And they would like us to burn, it's not shown on your map, but essentially the ditch up to their driveway. There's sort of some grassy brush with honeysuckle and junk on a hillside basically sloping down from the road north of G. So we're going to burn that out for them, especially with the west winds today. The smoke shouldn't be any problem on the highway, and since they want us to do it, we'll do it. So Jess will worry about that. The only hiccup there is there's some power lines along the road, guardrail with some wood posts along the road, and they have some small pine trees planted, a couple of them planted in that area, so you just have to make sure we don't get any heat near them.
And they want to burn through that honeysuckle?
So you can cut it off wherever you want. I mean, I told them we'd go all the way up to the driveway. There is like a break short of that. When you get over there, you guys can just check it out and decide what you want to do. But they want us to burn as much of it as possible, other than the pines.
Right.
The other private landowner is the Hare family. They have 2 houses. They've been cooperative in the past, but they're becoming less cooperative, I guess I would say. So I talked to Rick a couple weeks ago out here, walked his property. He was okay with it at the time. Today he seemed a little bit less okay with it, but we convinced him that it's going to be okay, and so we're going to go ahead and do it. I think in the future we'll probably just put a brick. Has anybody been on that line in the past when we burned around? Do you remember?
I might have been. I don't really know.
Nobody seems to remember. There's a few things to worry about. I mean, the houses are pretty close on each side, to the east and the west side of the unit as we go around there. So, you know, we want to make sure we have like really low intensity fire near the houses, and we got plenty of people there and plenty of water, and just in case anything happens. And we're going to start there. So we'll have plenty of people and plenty of water.
Okay.
He's got 2 propane tanks that are in the yard, but, you know, close to the unit. So we're going to want to make sure we have water on the lawn between those and the unit, just so there's like 0 chance of anything creeping through the lawn and the propane tanks. He's got a wood-burning stove that's in the yard. Shouldn't be a problem. He's got septic tubes, whatever you call them,
Vent tubes?
vent tubes on the north or on the south side of his property. And it's kind of mowed around those, and we like leaf blew or raked around them, but we'll probably exclude a larger area around them with a hose from the ATV. On the east side of the property, there's an old satellite dish, but he said that thing is not operational, hasn't been hooked up for a long time. It's all metal, and he doesn't care about that, so we don't need to defend it or anything like that. Shouldn't be anything flammable on it. On the west side, he's got some conifers that are about this high that he wants us to protect and not burn up and not having heat on them. And then he's also got a bunch of baby conifers that are all about this big that he just planted. Jared flagged them all. They're right along the edge of his lawn. We raked around them. But in addition to not having fire on them, we'll probably want to make sure there's no like heat from the flames on them because they could probably get dried out pretty easy. And yeah, you might. That's, honestly, we're glad he flagged them all because half of them we had a hard time even finding them. They're like in brush and stuff. So the other thing I'd say, so yeah, all the conifers, we want to make sure we don't get any heat on those, and if that means we light it off and then throw water in the unit to keep the heat down, that's fine. That's probably what we'll end up doing. The other thing I'd say is there's a steep slope behind the house, the east house, that runs up the hill. And we want to make sure the fire doesn't creep down that hillside at all, so we may use ATVs to spray water down on the edge of the lawn, even if it doesn't seem necessary. We're going to kind of go overboard when we're over there.
Wait. The house is on top of the hill?
One house is on the bottom. There's a hill going up from the east house,
Okay.
and so the edge of the unit is like on the top of a hill.
Ah.
On this side, it slopes down from the house. So on the west side, it's a steep slope down from the house, and that's where there's the conifer trees, and we sort of leaf blew and raked the fuel out a ways from those. But we're essentially going to be lighting off the top of the hill and letting it back down that hill.
Okay.
And that's where we're really close to the house there. So we're going to have ATVs with water. We're going to let it back down that hill. We're not going to have anything but backing fire. It should be backing into the wind and down the hill from that west side. And I'll start there, and Jess's line is going to start there too. So that's basically what we'll do. And it'll make more sense when we get over there because there's a lot of stuff. But essentially, we're going to start there, myself, Jared, and Jess's line. And we're going to burn out that west side, and we're going to let it back, and we're going to make sure we keep everything really cool. There's also a big brush pile kind of at this corner. I guess what you'd call this northeast corner, or of his property, the northwest corner of his property. So we'll probably like light it and let the fire kind of start to back through it, but there's a bunch of brush and stuff, and it's close to these conifers, so we'll probably end up throwing water on it just to keep it cool, and we don't want like a brush pile going, basically.
Good.
Anything else over there that you guys remember?
What's on the trail that goes back into the woods?
Okay, good. He's got a gravel road that goes back to the south into the unit. The gravel road itself obviously is fine, and then when you get to the end, right now he has one trailer parked back there, and he's got some more trailers in his yard. He said he's going to move them right now, so he may be moving like several trailers back there. There's essentially like a big gravel turnaround back there, like a big parking lot. The one trailer that was back there right now is like fully on the gravel, no problem, should be super secure. I told him to make sure the other ones were the same, like in the middle of the gravel, not like up against the unit, but we'll have to check it out and make sure it's secure when we get back there. So they should be fine, but we'll obviously want to light around the edge and make sure we have somebody back there, possibly with an ATV to keep an eye on it while it burns out. There's also a big pile of logs back at the end. Jess blew around them, so we'll need a light around them, but they'll probably be fine. Right. Other than that, there's like miscellaneous junk and brush piles and stuff you'd expect around people's houses, so we tried to rake and leaf blow around things. We'll take our time burning around this area. We'll use water. We'll keep things from going up. Keep snags from going up. Keep big logs from going up, all that kind of stuff. So once we move out from there, Jared and I will stay there and basically deal with all this. But at the very beginning, we may go pretty slow while we're getting a lot of backing fire going around this house, basically.
And that's where we're going to start.
So we'll start there, myself, Jared, and Jess's line. We'll start at the northwest corner by D. Adam's line, I think, at the same time is going to start at C. So we'll deal with basically the Hare household and burning around this yard and everything. At some point, it may be relatively quick. We'll see how it goes. Jess's line might start moving down the road and burning out to E. Adam's line will start at C and basically work their way down the road towards the Hare house. And when you guys get if when you get to the edge, then we'll talk and see how it's going. We may have you just leave the fire at the road, let it flank, and head out and go do your thing, or maybe we'll have you help us out. We'll just see how it goes. The reason we want to do that is because today with the winds coming out of the west, so at the beginning it's basically parallel to Kettle Moraine Drive, except for this little stretch by C. So that's the one spot where you could get smoke on the road. So if you light this and it's going straight up in the air, then we have no problem. You'll just have to decide if you can strip it out, if you can widen, if the smoke will still lift, or if that makes it go across the road. We may have to just wait and let it back. You're just going to have to see what the smoke does. We want to get this north end done for a couple of reasons. Eventually, the wind's going to shift around to the south, so at that point we would be putting smoke across Kettle Moraine Drive. So early in the burn, we want to get everything on this north end burned out. So by the time that happens, all the smoke's lifting on this end. So I'd rather deal with the houses with a lot of people and make sure we get everything done really solid on this north end. So we'll start at D. Myself, Jared, and parts of Jess's line will be responsible for getting around the Hare house. And then also Jess's line will start to progress. Adam's line will go from C to D. Once we're solid there, we'll just decide if you're going to, maybe we'll have you burn out a big chunk back to C. It'll basically be your call depending on the smoke. But at some point we're going to want this burned out, in the first hour or so. So you have to see how it goes. After that, Adam's line will be free to basically progress around the unit from C to B to A, which that's mostly ATV drivable. There's a small stretch that you can't get an ATV through somewhere between C and B, right? Yeah. So the ATVs might be able to come part way down, then they'll have to go around and come in at B and come in from the other side.
Well, there is a trail in the woods that you can go around.
So you know where that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
So
pointed out to them.
okay. So you guys will know how to get around there. So we can get ATVs around. You can also get pumper trucks in at B, down most of the line towards C, and then down the line to A if we need to get a pumper truck down there.
Okay.
From A to K, this is the only stretch on the burn that's hand line. And so I think we'll probably plan on Adam basically getting to K and stopping. Jess's line, once we're done here, they'll move from E to F to G. This is probably truck drivable it has been truck drivable in the past. It's not cleared enough anymore. Okay, so E to G is ATV drivable. If we had to, we could probably get a truck in there, but we'd have to cut stuff. Then from G to H is essentially their green mowed lawn, plus including the area with the ditch up to the driveway. From H all the way to I, we're burning off County Highway P. So, we're going to have to be careful out there. Probably nobody really will need to be along the highway other than to move vehicles back and forth, right? Or maybe do we have to defend power poles and stuff?
There's not really good fuel around any of the power poles or anything.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be too much defending.
So it shouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
It might be tight. Like if you wanted to have a pumper truck up here, it probably would be tight because there's not much shoulder, right? So,
Especially by the guardrail.
Yeah.
especially by the guardrail. So if we can avoid it, let's not have a pumper truck up there, if we can avoid it. And if you have an ATV up here, let's be really careful because people tend to come flying. And we got signs out on the road, including telling people to be prepared to stop and stuff like that, but just be careful. They're basically coming up and over a hill at I. So at I, they'll be coming over the top of a hill and coming at you. So keep that in mind. So we got the Johnson house, which Jess's line and Jared will deal with when they get there. The one thing I'd say is when you guys are coming down the road, before you get all the way to his driveway, you may want to stop short if you're feeling good west wind and start on the inside of his driveway and work your way back out just to get backing fire between his house and the head fire that's going to come over the hill.
Is it up on a bridge or?
From the road, the unit goes up to a ridge and back down, and his house is in the bottom of a kettle. And it basically slopes up away from his house, from his yard all the way around, right?
From the south side, it's a little bit down into the unit, but from the rest of it, it's up from his house.
It's really pretty solid down in there. I'm assuming his lawn's super green at this point, right? And he's got a hose with water. He said if anybody needs drinking water, they can step into his house, and he's going to feed Jared later. So I'll let you guys talk about that. Jared just went and checked it out, so he knows what's going on. So after that, Jess's line, we can get a pumper truck in at I. There's a gravel driveway, and then at one point we veer off it. So from I to J, we basically have ATV, and then from J to K, we have ATV. So hopefully we'll tie up at K. If like, for instance, maybe Jess's line has a lot of different stuff to deal with. Maybe they are going slow and Adam's line's doing well. You know, Adam, you can keep progressing, whatever. But if you get to K and you need to defend your line and mop up and monitor, then that's fine. You can just hold up. So we'll be aiming to tie off at K or maybe somewhere in between J and K. Doesn't really matter. Pine plantations outside of the unit in several locations. One's between J and K is a younger pine plantation. The one we're in now is an older pine plantation. That's the entire east side of the unit. And then between E and G, there's another pretty big pine plantation over there. Otherwise, outside of the unit is essentially people's lawns, a road. Between A and K, there's essentially the same type of fuel, oak woods. So that's kind of the one area that we would, in theory, be concerned about slopovers and stuff. But with west winds, it should be flanking, and then maybe by the time you get over there, you may be even starting to pull away off that line. So you really, once you turn from B, you're like not in a hurry at all. You know, you could even maybe get to A, and then spend a bunch of time burning out this end of the unit. Especially because we know the far east end is really marginal and may not burn. So you may have to go in a ways until you can get some fire to carry. So you'll be free to take your time working on this area, get it burned out, you know, maybe, and then maybe make sure you have people ready to go when you're ready to go from A to K. A to K is basically like a flat stretch, and then you go down, up, down, and up, and then you're done. And then we could have an ATV there again if we need it. The fuel's over here too. There are a few grassy stretches, especially at the north stretch along K. I don't think you probably would have to have water today, but you might need it. Did you see it, Alex?
Yeah. I don't think you'd need water. A flapper might help, actually.
Okay.
But if you could get an ATV there, it would make it go faster.
And by then, probably you guys will be there to help. So maybe even if you tie off at K, maybe you can at least help with that last stretch or something. So that's kind of the plan. As we're moving around the unit, basically, I'll be hanging out at D, and then I can basically probably patrol from G to C and keep track of everything along the road. And so you probably won't need to go back. Once you burn out between D and C and start heading, you won't have to worry about beyond C. And Jess, once you guys are like done over here and heading out, you won't have to worry about beyond back behind G. And I'll stay and deal with these houses, and then Jared will come over here, and then for the rest of the burn, Jared will be hanging out at Steve's house. And then when we start mopping up, Jared will probably still be there mopping up until Steve's is like really solid. Does that sound good?
You know where machines are going?
No, let's figure that out. So I'm gonna have an ATV. I could have a pumper truck, but I'd rather have an ATV. Jared's gonna have an ATV, and Jared needs one of our ATVs. He needs a good one. Adam and Jess, you each get one. Do you want the Kettles one?